Welcome to the Brave Enough Show, Jenn Landis. You and I met through a course we took together, and I loved your energy from the beginning. You were so positive in the course, and you were so encouraging to me personally and all of our colleagues that were in that course that I was like, I need to follow this woman. I need to learn from this woman. She just gets it. You know how you meet people and your energy, you like connect, and I connected with you over Zoom. And so I am so honored to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you, Sasha. I felt the same way. Mutual Admiration Society, definitely. And that class we were in was a little bit nerve-wracking because we were on camera and we were giving each other like feedback. And I don't know about you, but feedback has always struck me in two different ways, right? I love it because it helps you grow. And yet I cringe because you don't know what's coming next. So this idea of putting yourself out there, I love it. Kind of like you with your podcast, which I absolutely adore. And this idea of being fierce over 50. Yes, please. Sign me up.
Yes. And you're right. The course that we took was all online, and we had to just be put on the spot and pitch ourselves and talk quickly and pivot. And it was so stressful. And yet you always seem to just do it with poise and grace and loveliness. And I loved that about you. And then when I actually Googled you and read about how successful you are, I mean, you are this woman who literally went from being in this highly successful C-suite position to now you help other people kind of transition out of careers and make these big leaps. So can you talk to us, just give us like the 2-minute bio of how you decided to make that transition?
Yeah, I think like so many of us, we get to a point in our life and we realize we've been chasing plans. And what we really need to do is chase purpose. And I got to that point, and I want to be careful here because I don't want to make it sound like I knew what I was doing and I had it all together, because nothing could be further from the truth. Knew that I needed to leave my corporate job 2 years before I had the courage, or dare I say, was brave enough to walk away from a career that was successful and fulfilling in many ways and killing me in others.
Mm.
It was so, I had reached that path of divergence where what I thought it was going to be and the reasons I had signed up for it had changed. And I had to make that really tough decision of, am I going to stay here and compromise my health, compromise, in some cases, my beliefs, or rather, I want to be careful because it's not like these jobs are terrible and corporate is evil. And I hear that a lot. And I don't believe that. And I don't agree. I think you are what you bring to the job.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when you have to decide if that's where you want to put your energy, if
Mm-hmm.
that's where you want to continue to go and to grow. And for me, I had a lot of things that were happening. I was 48 at the time. I had to make a decision. I made the decision at 49 to exit the company. Never thought I would do that. Like, talk about a pivot out of left field. Never thought I would do that. But I realized that where I wanted to go and what I wanted to create in the world was no longer going to align with the role that I was in.
Mm. Mm.
And that was
So
hard.
good.
That was hard.
Oh, yeah, it's hard. And I love that you're giving this advice in the face of night, like not a toxic environment, not like a horrible thing. I think it's easier almost in some ways to leave toxic environments, although people still have like battered wife syndrome, at least like the women that I coach. I mean, it's not funny, but it's true. Like a lot of times
Yeah.
when you're breathing that toxicity, you think like, I deserve this toxicity and nothing will be better. And at least I know this toxicity, but you're talking about just a job that was good. It had benefits. It was great. You were so successful in it. I think sometimes those jobs are harder to leave when we have success, when we maybe are wearing the golden handcuffs, when we know that this is the path I'm on, that the next thing, and yet it no longer aligns with us. And having the understanding that you have the permission and agency to leave those jobs and leave those careers, even when everything seemingly is going well, takes a lot of courage and bravery, because what's on the other side of it is not guaranteed. I coach so many women that say, well, I know, but what if I leave this job and I take this new thing or I do this new thing and it sucks? And I go, well, I can't tell you it's not going to. Like it's
Right.
what you're going to make of it. Like you could go to this other place and you could leave this toxic job or this successful job to go over here, and it may not be great unless you realize like what it is, the freedom and the agency you have to make it what it is. Would you agree with that?
I so agree. I so agree. I had a mentor many, many years ago tell me that it is impossible to be healthy in a toxic environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we do get stuck sometimes thinking that we're healthy. And when we wake up to that realization that no, we're not healthy and our environment is toxic, there's really only one choice to make. You have to change something. And that usually means you have to leave that toxic environment, which makes it a little easier, to your point a minute ago. I think the other side of that is that bravery that you were talking about. Again, I want to keep it very real here. I was terrified when I made the decision to leave. But the reason I was able to make that decision was because I had decided that I was going to set myself up for brave, bold moves well in advance.
Mm.
So I had also received some advice that if you were going to step into a C-suite role in a publicly traded company, incredibly glass house kind of role where you're going to have to make tough decisions. And I was leading HR, safety, and facilities during COVID. So there were lots of tough decisions that had to be made. I needed to know that on day one of that job, I would be willing to put my badge on the table. Whatever it
Mm.
came to, I needed to take the job on day one, being willing to lose the job on day two, if I was
Mm.
going to be able to do the job in the way that it needed to be done and in a way that would honor who I am, what I believe, and what I was able to bring. And that was the only way I was going to be the kind of leader that the company required and that I could look at in the mirror at the end of the day. And
Mhm.
so I did some things with my husband. We had some tough conversations leading up to that role to decide what are we going to do to make sure that we have freedom to walk away. Not that it's going to be cushy, but that we have the option to walk away. So I had done that work well in advance. I was in the job for 6 years. I had done that work 6 years prior to say, okay, Jenn, when that moment comes and the realization strikes and you decide that it's time to leave, you have to be brave enough and you have to have created an environment that allows you to put your badge on the table and walk away and be okay with it. And so it was tough, but
Yes, yes,
yeah,
it was tough, and you did it. Like I
yes,
love that it's not like, oh, I had all this courage and it went great. I'm sure there were bumps throughout. I'm sure there were days of doubt. I'm sure when you decided to leave and show up fully and give yourself permission to do that, it wasn't like you went skipping out of there with like zero doubts about yourself or zero risk, or it's not like you encountered things you've never encountered before and had to go, what am I doing? Like I'm going from being employed mindset to entrepreneur mindset to, what I know and what I don't know. And I always say like, choose your heart, because being employed is hard. Being an
yeah,
entrepreneur is hard. Like,
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
like you chose left one hard thing for an easy thing. It's just about your purpose and your passion and an alignment. And I try to explain that to people as an entrepreneur. It's not like I have a shift where a work day where I go in, work for a certain amount of hours. I can tell you I do that in my day job and in my part-time job as a physician. It's very set in stone. Like I go in, I do this thing, I work, and then I leave. As an entrepreneur, I could work till, midnight every night if I let myself, if I didn't set up boundaries.
yeah,
Yet I have autonomy and independence, which is a huge value that I live by. Like that's one of my core values, is to have autonomy and independence. So that fuels that in me, that where my work at the hospital, I also really love connecting and helping patients. So it fuels that passion, but both are hard, right? Like whether you're in a C-suite role or whether you've decided to leave, both things are difficult and present challenges. So I would love to hear like what have been the biggest surprises during your pivot, both good and bad?
yeah. So I think my first surprise was that I chose not to go back into corporate.
Mm.
I really thought I probably would.
Mhm.
Because I believe these C-suite jobs, the really big jobs, are callings. They're not just
Mhm.
jobs, at least if you're going to do them well. And I didn't necessarily feel released from that calling, but I felt
Mm.
released from that job. Like that
Mm.
job in that company, it was time. But I wasn't sure if I was going to be released from corporate in all. And remember, it is disorienting when you have been chasing plans for 20 some odd years and now you decide you're going to chase purpose instead.
Mm.
There's some habits that come with chasing plans, like the next thing, the next thing. I don't know about you, but most high achieving women I know, we have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 15-year plan. We may not actually effectuate those plans, but the pursuit of them keeps us chasing challenge and chasing work and purpose. And so for me, it was a little disorienting to realize, oh no, Jenn, you're going to go do that thing you always said you would do when you retired, but you're going to do it at 49. You're going to do it
Yeah.
now. You're not going to wait.
Wow.
You're not going to
Yeah.
wait.
And
And
don't you
so,
feel like there was a calling in your late 40s? Did you feel like I
oh yeah,
definitely felt this. I,
yeah,
I lost a family member 2 years ago suddenly, and he was 2 years younger than me. And
mm,
it really made my husband and I change like a lot of our day-to-day life. And what I mean by that is where we put our priorities and where we put our time.
yeah,
Even how we spend our money. Like everything in our life has really we has changed since that event in many, many ways.
yeah,
And for both of us, it's been a like, what do we actually how do we want our 50s to look different? Because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. Like when you have something like
right.
that happen to you, you kind of have your own mortality and longevity on the front page instead of thinking about it like once a year on your birthday. It's like right in front of you.
Yeah.
And for me, I just really started asking myself like a very simple question of, why am I spending time doing this thing that I did not like to do? It could be something so small like
Mhm.
laundry. like,
Yeah.
like, why am I doing laundry? I have the means that I could probably ask my house cleaner, who comes a couple times a month, to add on laundry, and I would have time back in my life once a week to do something I enjoy. Like it could be something that simple to, why am I giving an hour of my month to this committee that I don't get paid to do? And actually, I don't see us progressing the agenda. And this is a great opportunity for somebody younger than me to get promoted. Why am I doing this? I mean, just little things.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, one of the big issues that I see in my coaching clients and in my community is being tied to money.
Mm,
Because I typically coach and work with women who are in the workforce. They're bringing home significant funds. They may be the breadwinner. They may be the only person in their household working. They're providing for their children. They may be providing for their aging parents. And they might be in a job that they no longer fits their purpose. They might be in a job where they feel completely and totally isolated or alone or even toxic, and they don't think they have choices because of the money they make. They're so fixated on the finances and the money. And
yeah.
these are women that I remind make like in the top 1 to 2% of
Yeah.
earners, right? For
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
I know you coach high achieving women. Can you talk us through how you also probably went through that and what you learned and maybe some lessons there?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. It is disorienting when you have significant funds coming in on a regular basis. Um, so okay, I love this question, and I want to think about how to answer it the best way I can. First and foremost, we all know there is more to life than money. And when you are in that top 1 to 2% and you're earning those kinds of dollars, I would ask you, what are your priorities first and foremost? Because look at where you're spending your money. How much of that aligns with your priorities? So I do think there is a thing, financial health is super important. And I'll tell you, I learned this very, very early on before I started making my salary that was in the 1 to 2%. And I learned very quickly that money, regardless of the amount that's coming in, can be something that ties you down, or it can be something that frees you. It depends on your relationship with money, how you
Mhm.
view money, and what you choose to do with your money. Um,
Mm.
I have always looked at money as a tool, not as something that is a status symbol, and not as something that necessarily gives me this for that, but rather it's a tool that I get to strategically employ, just as I strategically employ many of the other tools in my arsenal. And so I do think we have to have a healthy relationship with money. I think as women, we tend to be scaredy cats. We look
Mhm.
for security. And sometimes that security comes in the form of money, especially if you are the primary breadwinner. I understand that life. I have lived that life. I understand that. And so I think it would be a disservice to my clients when we have these conversations for me to say you shouldn't have those concerns. Let's acknowledge those concerns, but then let's figure out how we get you away from being tied down by that. I think uh, interestingly, Sasha, I was talking to a financial advisor, a friend, just the other day, and she was talking about how many women she serves that don't really understand their financial picture. In
Mm.
many cases, they actually have more available to them than they think they do.
Mhm.
And so we usually start, Sasha, by saying, first, understand your picture. Like, what do you really need? What do you really not? Then I think you have to divorce yourself from this idea that you have to have a certain dollar amount. You don't.
Yeah.
Happiness is not bought with money. We say it. I don't know how many of us actually believe it until we make a decision that says we're going to live our lives in that way. And so I
Yeah.
think you have to make certain decisions about that. And then after that, my husband, I'm going to tell you, my husband, when we first made this pivot, and he was so incredibly supportive, he kept looking at me and he said, "Jenn, you're ruining it. You're ruining it.
Oh, wow.
Why are you worrying about some of these things that don't matter? You've got plenty of money. You've got more time than you've ever had. And I'm looking at you, and you are pushing yourself back into planning when you left to follow purpose. You're ruining
Mm.
it."
Mm.
So I have a little plaque that says, "Don't ruin it.
Oh, I
Don't
love
ruin it.
that. What a
Don't ruin
gift.
Yeah, don't ruin this moment. Don't ruin it by worrying about funds that aren't necessary. Like, you
Yeah.
don't need a certain lifestyle in order to be happy. You can actually be much happier with a different lifestyle. I found that my expenses went down quite a bit. I didn't have to have the latest of everything like I
Right.
did when I was in C-suite. Like,
Yeah.
I had to have a certain level of bag, of shoe, of wardrobe when knew I was flying to New York and we were going to be doing some, meeting with certain people there. I had to have a certain level. We actually considered them business expenses in my household. I don't have to
Mhm.
have that same level. Now, I may want it because I am
Right.
a girl
Right, right.
and
I
I get to
know.
choose it. I still get
Yes.
to choose it, but I don't have to have it. And so I really think there's this huge mindset shift that happens when you go from plans to purpose, and when you make the decision that you're going to step into the unknown, and that's a
Mm.
beautiful, incredibly wild journey. And as high performing, high achieving women, we wouldn't want it any other way.
Right.
we wouldn't want
Yes.
we wouldn't choose not to have something hard. We would
No.
find something else that's hard,
Yeah.
right?
And I
Because
love this advice of don't ruin it. I love that because I think so many times we make a decision, we do the brave thing, we embrace our courage, and then all of our old thinking starts creeping back in.
yeah,
And we suddenly we're so addicted to these other I see this all the time in my coaching clients. They make a decision, they choose a new position or new role, or maybe even a new institution, and they're looking for the same problems to rear their ugly heads. And they're like, "Oh, I had a conversation today and I can see this happening." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, where's the evidence? We're starting. You can't start fresh operating in the same old thinking and systems, right? That you just carry them along with
so
you if
true.
you literally do not recreate these habits. It reminded me of, like, for me, this whole concept is my Mazda that I drive. So a couple years ago, I needed a new car. I've always driven a big mom car, like or not an Escalade, but like a Navigator or a big, huge Suburban or something, because I have 4 kids. And a few years ago, I needed a new car, and I'm like, I have 2 now going to college. I only have 2 at home. I'm going to buy a smaller car. And my husband is like the car guy. He loves cars and he always buys our cars. So he did this whole analysis and he's like, okay, here, you can get this car and this car or this car. And I'm like, those seems really pricey. Like, what's a car we could just pay cash for right now? And he's like, well, let me go back to the drawing board. So he went and he drove like 10 different cars. And he's like, there's actually this Mazda and it's like a really good car. It has great reviews. It's like the 2023 car of the year. And it's the best bang for your buck for a small SUV. And I'm like, okay, we're getting it. And he's like, you haven't driven it. And I said, you've already told me everything I want to know because I want a car that I can pay cash for and that I don't go in debt. And I want something to remind me that I'm choosing the Mazda. I'm not choosing the BMW because I don't care about the difference between getting to point A and point B. And the only reason I would get the BMW is just so I can say I'm driving a BMW. So of course I get the Mazda. I drive into the doctor's garage and like all these doctors start teasing me about the Mazda. They're like, are you driving a Mazda? Did you get a Mazda? Did you just finally downsize and you got a Mazda? And I'm like, you know what? This car is such a good reminder to me every single day when I walk out there and get in it next to the Porsches and the Teslas and all these expensive cars that I have chosen actually to cut down my work. I don't make as much money as I used to from the hospital. And I love that because guess what I do get? I get to actually coach people, put on conferences, put on retreats, spend more time with my family, sleep in my own bed every night. I love what that Mazda represents, right? But there's been a time where I would buy into I have to have a BMW because I have to fit in with all the other doctors and I can't drive a Mazda. And now I'm like, yeah, I drive a Mazda. It gets me from point A to point B and I don't have any.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm perfectly happy.
So, Sasha, once again, so I love this. My husband and I have three family values: faith, family, and freedom. And freedom for us has always been, it's been, obviously it's taken on different definitions over time, but it really became our core value, one of our core values, when we were in debt and we wanted financial freedom. And I'll tell you, everything I've done in my life and all of the bravery and brave decisions I've been able to make have been in part because we had this belief of financial freedom. So yeah, we own our cars. I own my home. I own I don't owe anybody anything. And it took me years and years and years. I don't want to make it sound like it's easy. It took me years to do that. But once we got financially free, and by the way, it happened long before I got to my C-suite job, we chose to stay there. So we don't pay for things unless we can afford them, and we save up. And that has kept us grounded. It kept me grounded when I was making the huge dollars, top 1%, as we were talking about earlier. It kept me grounded. So I agree. I have my own version of the Mazda, and that Mazda has given me so much freedom and so much courage to make the hard decisions because I'm not trading my values for money.
Yes.
I'm able to live within my values. Now, I'm still a messed up girl sometimes because, we all have our own neuroses and we all have our own bad habits. But when it came to making those decisions, that's what enabled me to walk away at 48, 49, was because I knew I could.
Yes. And the freedom that comes with knowing you're going to be okay because you've put in you've put in those investments before that and what your values were, faith, family, and freedom. Like those are your values. And so again, you're going through life with a very different lens of not, I should buy this, I should have this, I should, I have to make this much money every month, to what are my values and how do I live in a way that honors those values every day? And not that it has to be being an entrepreneur. You can live your values working in corporate or working as an employee. That's not the message here at all. No. The message is being in a role or doing work that aligns with your purpose and living a life that aligns with your values. That's the message here. And it's giving ourselves permission to pivot. So what advice would you give to other women who are contemplating this reinvention?
I would tell you to go for it. Like lean into the idea. So my pivot actually happened as a result of my community. I had a community of incredible women who were all high achievers in their own right across all different industries and just everything. Like, you talk about diversity. This group was just incredibly diverse. And I was talking to them and I told them at the time, I'm knocking on 2 doors. I'm knocking on the corporate door to see if maybe I want to go back there. And I'm also knocking on this author, speaker, entrepreneurial journey that I've always wanted to do. And they got tired of me and they staged an intervention. And I'm so grateful that they did. I've had so many people speak truth into my life. It's such a gift. And they said, Jenn, we're going to hold up a mirror for you. Because when you talk about going into corporate, you wilt. You visibly wilt.
Mm.
Your posture closes
Wow.
in, your face falls, your tone becomes more somber. And when you talk about really leaning in and chasing your purpose and speaking and writing and giving back to the women that you just so believe in, you light up. You light up the room. You sit taller. Like, everything about you transforms. So they gave me a challenge. They said, give it 3 months. I want you for 3 months. I want you to lean into this entrepreneurial thing. And my advice to the women on this who are listening would be, give yourself a period of time in which you are going to seriously contemplate that pivot that you want to do. Seriously contemplate it. And don't back away. Lean in heavy for a short period of time, whatever that needs to be for you. And then at the end of that period of time, then make the evaluation. We have a tendency as women to evaluate or to judge at the same time we're trying to create. You cannot create and evaluate with the same brain. Does not happen. You will start to create and your evaluation will immediately find fault. You have to set aside your evaluation, set aside your judgments, and just create. Lean into it for a period of time and then see what happens. For me, that 3 months turned into 15 months, and I never looked back. I had written a book within that period of time. I had started the business. I had started speaking, and I had launched this amazing life and had met Dr. Sasha Shillcutt. So you never know where that's going to take you. It may or may
Oh,
not, but
so
lean
good.
in.
Love that message because it's something we can all do. And it's free. There's no risk in doing the exercise exactly what you just described. Okay, this was so good. I just want to keep talking and have so many more conversations. You're going to have to come back on the show. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can follow you, listen to your podcast, all the good things?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So you can find me probably easiest at jennlandis.com. That's Jenn with 2 N's, JENNLANDIS. And I'm everywhere on social media with the handle Ask Jenn, again with 2 N's, Landis. So would love to connect with what you're doing and where you're at. We are all in this journey together. I'm a huge believer in women supporting and slingshotting other women forward. So if there's anything I can do, certainly happy to connect and visit and support you in whatever way I can.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So if you were listening today, there were several pearls that we talked about and several topics that we kind of went into. The first was just starting over and how to think about getting out of that mindset of, oh, I can't choose different. I don't have the agency. And really talking about moving from creating plans to creating a purpose. Then we also talked about how a calling is never released. We may release ourselves from a job and we may quit a job, but we never quit a calling. And lastly, just the importance of thinking financially. What are you tied to and what are your values? Because that's going to really help you improve how you live your life and making those choices to have that freedom. Thank you for listening today. And as always, live brave.